The wren is the king of all birds. On St. Stephen's Day he was caught in the furze. Though he is little, his family is great. Rise up, Mrs. Thomas, and give us a treat. Hello, 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 boys. Hello, hello, hello.
Eliza Carthy, could you tell us a bit about your family background, your parents and grandparents?
I come from a musical family. My parents are folk singers. My father is a guitarist who is known for playing the guitar and inventing a particular style of English folk guitar. He started playing when he was 17 back in the 50s, and really was quite instrumental in his youth in sort of building the 60s folk club scene in London. He was a friend of Bob Dylan and Paul Simon many years ago, and is known for reconstructing old traditional ballads, traditional English ballads. My mother comes from a folk singing family called the Watersons, and they were from the north of England. They're from Hull, which is in the north of England, and they were also instrumental in the beginning of the 60s folk revival, the formation of the folk clubs, and the beginning of basically the professional music scene that I work on now.
And were your parents both from musical families?
Really, both sides of my family are musical. My mother's side of the family were all travellers and gypsies. Her grandmother, she was brought up by her grandmother. Both of her parents died when she was very young. She had an uncle that played the trumpet. You know, her father played the banjo. He used to listen to American radio during the Second World War, and he used to learn the songs off the radio like that. Her grandmother was very into the sort of old romantic ballads like the Spinning Wheel and things like that, and she used to sing when they were little. The whole family sang, the whole family danced, and I was brought up in that kind of a family. My mother and her brother and her sister were in a singing group. My dad joined that singing group, and then when I was old enough I joined the family as well.
So you had a very musical upbringing.
My upbringing was, I suppose some people might think it was quite a hippie upbringing. I was brought up on a farm that had 3 houses in a row, with me and my mum and dad in the end house, my uncle, my mum's brother, and his wife and their 4 children in the middle house, and then my mum's sister and her husband and their 2 children on the other end house. And we grew up basically self-sufficient. We had animals and we had chickens and goats and pigs and horses and things like that, and we grew up singing together and living together in that environment in North Yorkshire in the 1970s. Because my parents were professional musicians and touring musicians, we had a lot of touring musician friends who would come and stay at the farm, and they would sing and play all the time. There was music all around when I was a child, and that really formed the basis of how I live now.
Do you think it was inevitable that you'd become a professional musician?
Well, if you were ever to ask any of us we would definitely have all said no. I wanted to be a writer. My mum certainly didn't want me to go on the road. My mum retired in 1966, 65, 66 from professional touring to raise me. I mean, the road is a difficult place, whether you're travelling with your family or with a band or on your own. And she certainly didn't want that for me. My dad also probably never thought that I would do it, but I ended up exactly following his footsteps and quitting school when I was 17 and going on the road, and I've been on the road ever since.
Can you tell us about your first public performance?
My dad says that my first public performance was at the Fylde Folk Music Festival in Fleetwood in Lancashire when I was 6. And we were at the Marine Hall and they were singing, the Watersons, the family group were singing, and I asked if I could go up on stage with them, and I was 6. And Dad said, well, you know, you probably don't know everything, so just you can stand next to me on stage and we'll start singing, and if you know the song, just pull on my leg and I'll lift you up to the microphone and you can join in. God, it must have been awful. But yes, apparently, the first song they started up singing, tugged on his leg and picked me up and held me to the microphone. I sang that and he was like, did you enjoy that? Yes, I did. Thanks. And put me down again. They started singing the next one. Tugged on his leg, same thing. And he just ended up doing the whole concert with me sitting on his hip, which now I have a 6-year-old. I know how heavy she is. It must have been quite difficult. God bless him.
Has having children yourself changed your approach to your career?
Yes, in a way. Yes, in a way it has. I've just reordered my working year because my eldest daughter has just started school. So I'm not free to take the children with me on the road anymore, and I'm now bound by the school term. So I try to work only on the weekends and in school holidays now. And I try to be mummy from Monday to Friday, taking them to school, bringing them back again. I'm not getting a great deal of sleep, but then I don't know many mothers of 6 and 4-year-olds that are getting a great deal of sleep.
You do a lot of collaborations with other musicians. What is it that appeals to you about working like that?
I like working with others. I don't like working alone. I don't know if that's because I don't trust myself or I just don't like being alone. I like being surrounded by a big crowd of people. I suppose that's partly to do with my upbringing. There was always so many people around that I'm at my best. I'm at my best in a large event where loads of people are running around doing things and we're all sort of collaborating with each other and there's lots of ideas and everyone's having a creative time. And that's how I feel. That's how I feel I work best, and that's why at the moment I have a 13-piece band, and it's just heaven for me, being with so many people and just feeling like part of a big machine. I love that.
Is there a difference between playing with your family and playing with other people?
Yes, very much so. I'm not sure if I could tell you how different or why it's different. My dad is very eloquent on how and why it's different, and he knows that uniquely because he joined the Watersons, and the Watersons was a brother and 2 sisters, and he joined that. And of course he was married to my mum, but he wasn't related to her. And there is this thing within family groups, this blood harmony thing, this intuition. You have similar sounding voices, you know where a relative is going to go, and that may be because you know each other so well, but it also may be whatever it is that binds a family together anyway.
Would you like your children to follow in your footsteps?
I get very, very excited when the children love music. I get very excited. My daughter Florence is very, very sharp. She listens, and she plays Twinkle Twinkle on the violin, plucking like that, and on the guitar as well. And she has a very, very good sense of rhythm. She loves foreign languages as well. There's a real sort of correlation there between language and singing. She has great pitch. She is able to learn songs and things very, very quickly, and I love that. And Isabella, my youngest as well, she's really showing interest in it. I love it when they do that. As to whether or not I'd want them to be touring musicians, I think I'm probably of the same opinion as my mother, which is no, not really. But you know, I think the world is changing anyway. I don't know how many touring musicians there are going to be in the world in 20 years when they're ready. I don't know. And they were also instrumental in the beginning of the 60s folk revival, the formation of the folk clubs, and the beginning of basically the professional music scene that I work on now.
And were your parents both from musical families?
Really, both sides of my family are musical. My mum retired in 1966, 65, 66 from professional touring to raise me. I mean, the road is a difficult place. But yes, apparently, the first song they started up singing, tugged on his leg.
Has having children yourself changed your approach to your career?
Yes, in a way. Yes, in a way it has. The Watersons was a brother and two sisters, and he joined that. And of course he was married to my mum, but he wasn't related to her. And Isabella, my youngest as well, she's really showing interest in it. I love it when they do that. As to whether or not I'd want them to be touring musicians, but you know, I think the world is changing anyway. I don't know how many touring musicians there are going to be in the world in 20 years.
What do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of working in a family business?
Okay, so when I was a teenager, my dad started a business which very quickly involved the whole family. That could have been stressful. I'm sure it was very stressful for my mother often. But as a teenager, that was a ready-made job. My parents offered that as an opportunity. At one point, I went off and got a job somewhere else, but they were cool about that. So I think actually in that sense, that at the time for me was very good. I could see it could cause a few stresses.
Was there a time through the day that work stopped and family began, or did it all blur into one?
Do you know, when we first started, the office was our spare bedroom and the warehouse was our dining room. It was very hard to genuinely get away from it, and I should imagine that's I'm sure those lines could be blurred quite often if it's a whole family working together. I actually don't think I'd want to do that now.
It's a bit of a buzzword these days, work-life balance. It must be
Yes.
quite hard to strike that balance if you're working as part of a family.
I bet it is. I think I'd find that very difficult nowadays.
Yeah, I think as well, I know of someone who grew up in a family business and she was quite heavily exploited by her mum.
Oh dear.
But I think that it does have advantages as well. I think the main one is you growing up in a family business, you can see where your parents work and make their money. Whereas my parents would go off to work and I knew that was a place that they went off
Yes.
to make money. But
that's really
I didn't see
important,
it.
to
So I think
appreciate it,
it makes you
yes.
appreciate it
Totally.
more, and you see the hard work and the stresses
Yes.
of running a business.
So it could be an opportunity, one hopes,
Definitely.
rather than an exploitative situation.
But I think that it does have advantages as well. I think the main one is you growing up in a family business, you can see where your parents work and make their money. Whereas my parents would go off to work and I knew that was a place that they went off
Yes.
to make money. But
that's really
I didn't see
important,
it.
to
So I think
appreciate it,
It makes you
yes.
appreciate it
Totally.
more, and you see the hard work and the stresses
Yes.
of running a business.
So it could be an opportunity, one hopes,
Definitely.
rather than an exploitative situation.